Rain fell like whispered secrets against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Seoul's most exclusive hotel. The city's skyline glowed behind the glass, a kingdom of neon and ambition stretching toward clouds that wept silver tears. Inside the private dining suite on the 62nd floor, one table waited. Not for romance, for business. Outside the mahogany doors, a Nigerian family huddled together, voices dropping to urgent whispers. Chief Solomon Dappa adjusted his tie for the 7th time. His daughter Kayamika clutched her purse like a lifeline. Their debts had become a noose, tightening with every passing month. Someone had convinced them that introducing their beautiful niece to an influential Korean businessman might earn them mercy. They had no idea who waited inside. He wasn't merely a businessman. He was Cha Do-hwan, one of South Korea's most feared mafia bosses. Inside the suite, he sat perfectly still at the head of the table. His tailored black suit absorbed the ambient light. His dark charcoal gray eyes reflected nothing. Not the rain, not the city, not the nervous energy seeping through the walls. Not a single word. His right-hand man, Kang Min-seo, stood 3 feet behind him, hands clasped, watching the door. When it finally opened, she walked in alone. Zina Dappa, 23 years old, final-year fashion business student. The family's offering. But she didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She didn't perform. She simply stopped a respectful distance from the table, lowered her head in a polite bow, and said quietly, "I'm sorry. I didn't know why my family asked me to come here." For the first time in years, Do-hwan looked directly into someone's eyes instead of through them. The room suddenly felt different. Everyone expected him to dismiss her. Instead, he quietly stood, walked around the table, pulled out the chair beside his, and said one word, "Sit." Outside, her family smiled through the glass partition. They thought their plan was working. Inside, the mafia boss had already made a decision, one that none of them would ever see coming. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from so I can see just how far across the world this story has reached. The rain continued its patient symphony against the windows as Zina lowered herself into the offered chair. Her movements were careful, deliberate, the grace of a woman who had learned to carry herself with dignity regardless of circumstance. She wore a cream-colored silk blouse tucked into high-waisted champagne trousers. Her long black wavy ponytail cascaded past her shoulders, soft baby hairs framing her face with effortless elegance. Minimal gold jewelry caught the light. A thin bracelet, small hoop earrings. Nothing excessive. Everything intentional. Do-hwan returned to his seat, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Min-seo's eyes narrowed slightly. In 15 years of service, he had never seen his boss pull out a chair for anyone. "You said you didn't know why you were asked to come here," Do-hwan finally said. His voice was deep, unhurried, like distant thunder before a storm. "What did they tell you?" Zina met his gaze. Her warm hazel-brown eyes held neither fear nor submission, only a quiet, unflinching honesty. "They told me it was an important business dinner, that I should dress nicely and be polite." She paused. "They didn't tell me I was the business." The corner of Do-hwan's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close to respect. "And now that you know? Now I'm trying to decide whether to be angry or embarrassed." She folded her hands on the table. "I've settled on disappointed. In them. In myself." Her voice softened. "I should have asked more questions." Do-hwan studied her. The way she held herself. The steadiness in her words. The absence of desperation. He had met countless people in this room. Business partners, enemies, supplicants begging for mercy. They all wanted something. They all performed. This woman wasn't performing. She was simply being. "Your family owes a significant debt," he said, not as a question. "So I'm learning. They believe introducing you to me might encourage generosity." Zina's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. "What do you believe?" The question surprised him. No one asked what he believed. They assumed. They feared. They obeyed. "I believe," he said slowly, "that using a person to settle a financial obligation is not business. It's cruelty. Something flickered in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or vindication. Then why did you agree to this meeting? Du-hwan leaned back in his chair. The movement exposed his collar slightly, revealing the edge of breathtaking ink. A black and gray Korean dragon beginning behind his left ear and coiling gracefully down the side of his neck. Traditional Korean cloud patterns swirled around it, blending with magungwa blossoms and elegant brushstroke smoke. Every scale was finely detailed, a masterwork of artistry symbolizing leadership, loyalty, wisdom, resilience, and the burden of protecting those under his care. Xena noticed. She didn't flinch. Your uncle saved someone important to me many years ago, Du-hwan said. A small kindness during a difficult time. I agreed to this meeting as a favor to that memory. His eyes hardened slightly. I did not agree to purchase a person. The words hung in the air between them. Outside the glass partition, Chief Solomon watched anxiously, unable to hear the conversation. His smile was beginning to falter. You can leave, Du-hwan said quietly. Right now. I will tell your family the meeting concluded, and that will be the end of it. Xena tilted her head slightly. And the debt remains their problem, not yours. That's not how my family will see it. That's not your burden to carry. She was quiet for a moment, processing his words. The rain filled the silence, a gentle percussion against the impossible height of the building. You're not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone who would look at me like a transaction. She paused. You're looking at me like a person. Du-hwan's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. A recognition of equals meeting in an unexpected place. Because that's what you are. Xena took a breath. Then she stood, smoothing her trousers with quiet composure. Thank you for your honesty. And for the chair. She offered a small, genuine smile. I should go explain to my family that I'm not for sale. She turned toward the door. Miss Dappa. She paused, looking back over her shoulder. Du-hwan remained seated, but his voice carried across the room with effortless authority. If you ever need anything, not your family, you, Minseo will ensure you can reach me. His right-hand man stepped forward silently, producing a simple black card with a single phone number embossed in silver. Xena accepted it, studying the weight of it in her palm. Why? She asked. Because kindness should be remembered. Du-hwan's charcoal eyes held hers. And courage should be rewarded. She slipped the card into her pocket without another word and walked out of the dining suite with her head held high. The door closed behind her. Minseo waited exactly 3 seconds before speaking. That was unexpected. Du-hwan didn't respond immediately. He was still watching the door, as if he could see through it to the woman walking away. Find out everything about her family's situation, he said finally. The real story, not what they've told me. You said the debt was their problem. It is. Du-hwan turned his gaze to the rain-streaked windows. But I want to understand what kind of people would sacrifice someone like her. Minseo nodded slowly, recognizing something in his boss's voice that he hadn't heard in years. Interest. Genuine interest. Outside the private suite, Xena found her family waiting with barely contained anticipation. Chief Solomon rushed forward, his smile wide and hopeful. Well, how did it go? You were in there quite a while. Kayamika clutched her cousin's arm. Did he like you? What did he say? Xena gently removed herself from their grip. He said, she replied, her voice even, that I'm free to leave, that I'm not a payment, and that your debt is your responsibility, not mine. The silence that followed was suffocating. Chief Solomon's smile collapsed. What do you mean? You were supposed to. To what, uncle? Xena's eyes blazed with controlled fury. Convince a stranger to forgive your debts by... What? Charming him? Entertaining him? She shook her head. You lied to me. You dressed me up and delivered me like a package. Xena, you don't understand the pressure we're under. I understand perfectly. Her voice dropped, sharp as a blade. You chose your comfort over my dignity. You used me without my consent. And the worst part. She stepped back, creating distance between herself and the people who should have protected her. The man inside that room, the one you were so desperate to impress, showed me more respect in 10 minutes than you have shown me in 23 years. Kayamika reached for her. Zena, please. Don't. Zena's hand rose, stopping her cousin mid-step. I love you, all of you, but what happened tonight? She swallowed hard, fighting to keep her composure. I need time to forgive this. She walked toward the elevator without looking back. Chief Solomon called after her, his voice cracking with desperation. Zena, you can't just leave. How will we? The elevator doors closed on his words. Inside the descending box of glass and steel, Zena finally allowed herself to exhale. Her hands trembled, not from fear, from rage, from betrayal, from the horrible realization that the people who raised her had seen her as a solution rather than a person. She pulled the black card from her pocket and studied it again. One phone number. No name. No explanation. Just a lifeline from a man who should have been a monster but wasn't. 3 weeks passed. Zena threw herself into her final semester with renewed determination. Fashion business courses, internship applications, portfolio development. She refused to let her family's choices define her future. But the distance from her relatives ached like a wound that wouldn't heal. Chief Solomon called daily at first, then every few days, then weekly. Each message was a variation of the same theme. Apology tangled with justification, regret laced with subtle pressure. We didn't mean to hurt you. You don't understand how desperate we were. If you would just talk to him again. She stopped listening after the third voicemail. Kayamika was different. Her younger cousins sent quiet texts. No demands, no manipulation. Just small messages of support. I'm sorry. I should have warned you. I miss you. I'm here when you're ready. Zena appreciated the effort, but she wasn't ready. Not yet. Her days fell into a rhythm. Classes in the morning, library study sessions in the afternoon, and part-time work at a small luxury boutique in Gangnam during the evenings. It was there, surrounded by fabrics and designs and dreams of building something beautiful, that she found peace. The boutique owner, an elegant Korean woman in her 50s named Mrs. Park, recognized something special in her young employee. You have an eye, Mrs. Park said one evening, watching Zena arrange a display. The way you pair colors, textures. It's instinctive. Zena smiled, adjusting a sage green blouse against an ivory backdrop. I've always loved clothes. Not for vanity, for expression. The way fabric moves. The way colors communicate. She paused, searching for words. Fashion tells stories before anyone speaks. Mrs. Park nodded slowly. You should not work in someone else's boutique forever. I'm working towards something of my own. Eventually. Good. The older woman's eyes crinkled with approval. Dreams need deadlines. Otherwise, they remain fantasies. That conversation stayed with Zena as she walked home through Seoul's glittering nightscape. The city buzzed with energy. Neon signs, late-night cafes, couples laughing beneath umbrella shelters. She pulled her dusty rose coat tighter against the autumn chill and wondered, not for the first time, what her life would look like in 5 years. Would she have her own fashion house? Would she have repaired things with her family? Would she have found someone who saw her, truly saw her, the way she longed to be seen? Her mind drifted, unexpectedly, to a private dining suite 62 floors above the city, to charcoal gray eyes that had looked at her without hunger or calculation, to a single word spoken with more respect than she'd received in years. Sit. She shook her head, dismissing the memory. He was a stranger, a powerful, mysterious stranger with connections to a world she didn't understand. The black card still sat in her nightstand drawer. She told herself she would never use it. 2 nights later, everything changed. Zena was closing the boutique alone. Mrs. Park had left early for a family dinner, when the bell above the door chimed. 3 men walked in. They weren't customers. Their suits were expensive but worn carelessly. Their eyes scanned the room with predatory interest. The leader, a man with slicked-back hair and a thin scar across his left cheek, smiled in a way that made Zena's skin crawl. "Beautiful shop," he said in Korean. "Beautiful girl." Zena's hand drifted slowly toward the counter where her phone sat charging. "We're closing," she replied in careful Korean, grateful for the language courses she'd taken. "The register is empty. Please leave." The man laughed. A cold, empty sound. "We're not here for money." He stepped closer. "We're here for a message." Zena's heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't know what you're talking about." Chief Solomon Dappa. The name dropped like a stone into still water. "He owes money to very important people. People who are impatient. That's not my problem. It became your problem 3 weeks ago." The man's smile widened. "When you sat across from Cha Du-hwan." Ice flooded Zena's veins. They knew about the meeting. "Tell your uncle," the man continued, leaning against a display case, "that Kwon Tae-sung is tired of waiting. Payment is due. Full amount. 2 weeks." "Or what?" The words escaped before Zena could stop them. The man's eyes flickered with surprise, then amusement. "Courage." He nodded slowly. "I like that." He reached out, deliberately straightening a silk scarf on the display. "But courage without protection is just vulnerability." He turned toward the door, his companions following. At the threshold, he paused. 2 weeks, Miss Dappa. Tell your uncle." The door chimed. They were gone. Zena stood motionless for a full minute, her breath shallow, her hands shaking. Then she grabbed her phone. Not to call her uncle. Not to call the police. She pulled open the drawer beneath the register where she kept her personal items. The black card was there. She had brought it with her, telling herself it was just in case, that she would never need it, that it meant nothing. Her fingers trembled as she dialed. 1 ring. 2. "Yes." Calm male voice. "Not Du-hwan. Min-seo. This is Zena Dappa. I need." She closed her eyes, fighting to steady her voice. "I need to speak with Mr. Cha. Tonight. Please." A pause. "Where are you?" She gave the boutique's address. "Don't move. Don't call anyone else. Someone will be there in 8 minutes." The line went dead. Zena lowered the phone and stared at her reflection in the darkened window. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what world she was stepping into. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that the men who had just threatened her were not the kind who made empty promises. And Cha Du-hwan was not the kind of man who made empty ones either. Exactly 7 minutes and 43 seconds later, a black Mercedes sedan pulled up to the boutique's entrance. Min-seo stepped out of the driver's side, his face unreadable. He scanned the street with practiced efficiency before opening the rear passenger door. "Miss Dappa." Zena gathered her coat and bag, locked the boutique, and walked toward the waiting vehicle. She hesitated at the open door. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." Min-seo's voice was neither warm nor cold, simply professional. "He's waiting." She slid into the leather interior. The door closed. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb and merged into Seoul's river of lights. Zena watched the city blur past the tinted windows, her mind racing with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. What have I gotten myself into? What does Cha Du-hwan really want? And why, after everything, do I trust him more than my own family? The car climbed through the hills above Gangnam, leaving the commercial district behind. The roads narrowed. The buildings thinned. Eventually, they passed through a security gate manned by 2 guards in dark suits who nodded at Min-seo without requesting identification. Beyond the gate, a private estate emerged from the darkness. A modernist masterpiece of glass, stone, and steel that seemed to grow from the hillside itself. Zena's breath caught. This wasn't a home. This was a fortress disguised as architecture. The Mercedes stopped before a wide stone staircase. Min-seo opened her door and gestured toward the illuminated entrance. "He's in the east study. I'll escort you." She followed him through a grand foyer of polished concrete and warm wood accents. Original artwork lined the walls, Korean landscapes, abstract pieces, a single Basquiat that must have cost more than her entire education. But there were no photographs. No personal touches. Just beauty without warmth. Mincio stopped before a set of double doors and knocked twice. Enter. Duhwan's voice carried through the wood. The doors opened. The east study was smaller than Zena expected, intimate even. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined two walls. A fireplace crackled softly. Two leather armchairs faced each other across a low table bearing a crystal decanter and two glasses. And there, standing before the windows with his back to the door, was Cha Duhwan. He wore a black turtleneck and tailored trousers. No jacket. For the first time, Zena could see his arms clearly. Both sleeves were covered in seamless Korean black and gray realism. A roaring white tiger dominated his right forearm, muscles coiled with barely contained power. A soaring phoenix spread its wings across his left bicep, flames rendered in exquisite grayscale detail. Ancient guardian lion statues stood sentinel on his inner forearms, flanked by traditional temple gates and Korean mountain landscapes. Elegant Korean calligraphy flowed between the images, and storm clouds moved through the entire composition like living weather. When he turned, she caught a glimpse of his hands. Loyal across the right knuckles, honor across the left, bold, timeless, perfectly crafted. Miss Dappa, he gestured toward one of the armchairs. Please, sit. She moved into the room, acutely aware of how out of place she felt in this world of power and shadow. But she didn't let it show. She sat. Duhwan took the chair across from her, his charcoal gray eyes studying her with the same intensity she remembered from their first meeting. Tell me what happened. Zena told him everything. The three men, the threats, the name they had dropped, Kwon Tae-sung. When she finished, Duhwan's expression hadn't changed, but something in the air around him had grown colder. Kwon Tae-sung, he repeated quietly. He is ambitious and foolish. You know him? He runs a rival organization. Smaller, hungrier. Duhwan's jaw tightened. We have maintained a careful distance. Until now. Why would he target my uncle's debt? There must be hundreds of people who owe money in this city. Because your uncle's debt connects to something Tae-sung wants desperately. Duhwan met her eyes. Me. Zena's stomach dropped. I don't understand. 3 weeks ago, you sat across from me in a private dining room. Tae-sung's people watch everything I do. They saw you arrive. They saw you leave. Duhwan paused. They assumed a connection. But there isn't one. Perception is often more dangerous than reality. His voice softened slightly. In my world, if an enemy believes something matters to you, they will use it against you, whether it's true or not. The weight of his words pressed down on Zena's shoulders. So because of one dinner I didn't even want to attend, my family is in more danger than before? Your family placed themselves in danger long before that dinner. What happened tonight is a symptom, not a cause. Duhwan leaned forward slightly. Tae-sung doesn't care about your uncle's debt. He cares about finding leverage against me. And he believes, incorrectly, that you might be that leverage. Zena's hands curled into fists in her lap. This isn't fair. No. Duhwan's voice held no pretense. It isn't. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Zena spoke. What do I do? Duhwan considered her question with visible deliberation. You have two choices. Option 1. I provide security for you and your family. Discreetly. Tae-sung's men won't approach again. You return to your life, finish your degree, pursue your dreams. This situation becomes background noise. And option 2? You walk away from all of it. Disappear. New city. New identity. I can arrange it. No one finds you, but you lose everything you've built here. He paused. Including any chance of reconciliation with your family. Zena stared at him. That's not a choice. That's choosing between hiding and running. Sometimes those are the only choices. No, she shook her head. There has to be another way. Something that ends this. Not just delays it. Duhwan's eyes flickered with something that might have been admiration. You're asking me to go to war over a debt that isn't mine and a family that betrayed you. I'm asking you. Zena paused, searching for the right words. I'm asking you to tell me the truth. Is there a way to stop Kwon Tae-sung? Permanently? The question hung in the air. Do-hwan was silent for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. But it would require exposing corruption at levels you can't imagine. It would require evidence I don't yet possess. And it would require time. How much time? Weeks. Perhaps months. And in the meantime? In the meantime. He rose from his chair and walked toward the window, his broad silhouette framed against the city lights below. In the meantime, Tae-sung will continue to press your family. He will make threats. He may act on them. Zena stood, joining him at the window. They stood side by side, two silhouettes against the endless glitter of Seoul at night. Why do you care? She asked softly. About any of this? About me? Do-hwan didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than before, stripped of its usual command. I have built an empire on fear, on control, on making sure no one can ever hurt the people under my protection. He paused. But I have never met someone who walked into a room designed to humiliate them and walked out with their dignity intact. He turned to face her. You didn't beg. You didn't bargain. You simply refused to be less than yourself. Zena felt heat rise to her cheeks. That's not strength. That's stubbornness. In my experience, they are often the same thing. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. I don't know what will happen next, Miss Dappa, but I know this. I will not allow Kwon Tae-sung to use you as a weapon against your own family. Not while I am still breathing. She searched his face for deception and found none. Why? Because some debts cannot be measured in money. His charcoal eyes held hers. And some people are worth more than they will ever know. The fire crackled softly behind them. The city glowed below. And somewhere in that moment, suspended between danger and possibility, something shifted. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of something neither of them had expected. Trust. Over the following weeks, Zena's life became a carefully orchestrated balance between normalcy and protection. She continued her classes. She worked at the boutique. She built her portfolio. But now, everywhere she went, shadows followed. Not threatening shadows, protective ones. Do-hwan's people were subtle. A car that appeared whenever she walked home late. A figure standing at the edge of campus during her evening lectures. A phone call from Minseo every few days, checking in without ever being intrusive. She didn't see Do-hwan himself. Not at first. But she felt his presence like a constant hum beneath the surface of her days. Her family, meanwhile, had grown desperate. Chief Solomon's messages became more urgent. Kayamika reported that creditors were circling. The 2-week deadline Kwon Tae-sung had set was approaching. Against her better judgment, Zena finally agreed to meet them. The restaurant was in Itaewon, a Nigerian-owned spot called Mama Yatun's Kitchen, run by a formidable woman in her 60s who had lived in Seoul for 30 years and had seen everything. Zena arrived first, choosing a corner table with a view of the door. Mama Yatun herself brought water to the table, her eyes sharp beneath her bright orange head wrap. You look like a woman carrying a heavy load, my daughter. Zena managed a tired smile. Is it that obvious? Only to those who have carried heavy loads themselves. Mama Yatun sat across from her, uninvited but not unwelcome. Family trouble? How did you know? Because you're sitting alone in my restaurant with the face of someone waiting for people she doesn't want to see. The older woman's voice was kind but unflinching. Let me guess. They need something from you. Again. Zena's throat tightened. They made mistakes, Mama. Big ones. And now they expect me to help fix them. And will you? I don't know. She stared at her hands. They hurt me, deeply. But they're still my family. Mama Yatund nodded slowly. Let me tell you something, child. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Staying in a burning house is not loyalty. It is foolishness. She leaned forward. Help them if you choose. But never forget that your dignity is not the price of their mistakes. Before Zena could respond, the door opened. Chief Solomon walked in, followed by Kayamika. Her uncle looked older than she remembered. Gray threading through his hair, lines carved deeper around his eyes. Kayamika looked nervous, clutching her purse the same way she had the night of the blind date. Mama Yatund rose gracefully. I'll bring food. Eat first. Fight later. She disappeared toward the kitchen. The family sat. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Chief Solomon reached across the table, his hand trembling slightly. Zena, please. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what we did. But I am begging you. Don't. Zena's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Don't beg. It doesn't suit you, and it won't change what happened. He withdrew his hand, shame clouding his features. I came, Zena continued, because despite everything, I don't want to see you destroyed, but I need you to understand something. She leaned forward. Whatever help comes, it will not be because I sold myself for it. It will be because I asked someone I trust, someone you accidentally introduced me to consider mercy. Chief Solomon's eyes widened. Cha Du-hwan? You've spoken with him? I have. And he's willing to help? He's considering it. Zena's gaze hardened. But not for you. For me. Because I asked. Because he respects me. Not because I was offered to him like property. The words landed like blows. Kayamika reached for Zena's hand. We're so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I should have. You should have. Zena squeezed her cousin's fingers. But I'm choosing to believe you were afraid. And I'm choosing to give you a chance to do better. Kayamika's eyes welled with tears. Chief Solomon bowed his head. I was a coward, he said quietly. I made terrible decisions, and when the consequences came, I put them on your shoulders instead of my own. He looked up, and for the first time, Zena saw genuine remorse in his eyes. I cannot undo what I did, but I swear to you, on my life, I will never again sacrifice someone I love for my own failings. Zena studied him for a long moment. Words are easy, uncle. Actions are what matter. Then let me act. His voice strengthened. Tell me what I can do. Anything. I'll do anything. Mama Yatund returned with steaming plates of jollof rice and grilled chicken, setting them down with practiced efficiency. Eat, she commanded. Solutions come better on full stomachs. Despite everything, Zena smiled. The meal was quiet, punctuated by small conversations and cautious reconnections. By the time they finished, the worst of the tension had eased. Not disappeared, but softened. As they prepared to leave, the restaurant door opened again. Every head in the room turned. Cha Du-hwan walked in. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, his slicked-back black hair gleaming under the warm lights. The dragon tattoo curled visibly above his collar. His presence filled the room like a physical force, commanding attention without demanding it. Behind him, Minseo stood watch. Chief Solomon went pale. Kayamika's breath caught audibly. But Du-hwan's eyes found only one person, Zena. He walked directly to her table, ignoring the whispers rippling through the other diners. Miss Dappa. His deep voice was calm, almost gentle. May I join you? She gestured to the empty chair beside her. He sat. The table fell into stunned silence. Mama Yatund appeared at his elbow, completely unfazed. You look like a man who takes his coffee black. Am I right? You are. The corner of his mouth twitched. Thank you. She nodded with approval and retreated. Du-hwan turned his attention to Chief Solomon. Mr. Dappa, we have unfinished business. Chief Solomon swallowed hard. Mr. Cha, I don't know what to say. Then listen. Du-hwan's voice dropped, carrying only to their table. Your debt to Kwon Tae-sung is not what you believe. You were manipulated into borrowing from a front company designed to funnel money to criminal operations. The interest rates were illegal. The contracts were unenforceable. Chief Solomon blinked. What? You were targeted because of a connection I didn't know existed. A favor you did for someone important to me many years ago. Tae-sung discovered that connection and used your debt to create leverage against me. The blood drained from Chief Solomon's face. You mean, I was never really in debt? You owe principal on a legitimate loan, but nowhere near what they've claimed. The rest is fabricated interest designed to keep you desperate. Du-hwan's eyes hardened. Tae-sung wanted you broken enough to offer anything, including your niece. Kayamika gasped. Zena felt the world shift beneath her feet. This was never about money, she said slowly. It was about getting to you. Yes. Du-hwan met her gaze. And they almost succeeded. Chief Solomon buried his face in his hands. I am a fool. A complete fool. You were desperate, Du-hwan said, his voice surprisingly measured. Desperation makes fools of many people. What matters now is what you do next. He reached into his jacket and produced a slim folder, sliding it across the table. Inside is documentation proving the fraud. Contracts, bank records, communications. Enough to destroy Kwon Tae-sung's legitimate business fronts and expose his criminal operations. Chief Solomon stared at the folder without touching it. Why would you give this to me? Because you will deliver it personally to the Financial Supervisory Service tomorrow morning. Du-hwan's voice left no room for argument. You will cooperate fully with their investigation, and you will publicly separate yourself from any connection to Tae-sung's organization. And if I refuse? Du-hwan's eyes went cold, truly cold, for the first time since entering the restaurant. Then I will leave your family to face Tae-sung's wrath alone, and I will ensure Miss Dappa never speaks to you again. The threat was quiet, absolute. Chief Solomon looked at his niece, at the woman he had wronged, who had somehow found protection from the very man he had hoped to manipulate. I'll do it, he said hoarsely. Everything. I'll do all of it. Good. Du-hwan stood, buttoning his jacket. Min Seo will provide details tomorrow. He turned to leave. Wait. Zena rose from her chair. You came all this way just to deliver a folder? Du-hwan paused, looking back at her. No. Then why? The silence stretched. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than anyone at the table had ever heard it. Because I wanted to see your face when you learned the truth. When you realized that the people who hurt you were also victims, manipulated by someone who understood exactly how to exploit family loyalty. His charcoal eyes held hers. And because I wanted you to know that some battles don't have to be fought alone. Zena's heart pounded. The restaurant seemed to fade around them. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. The ghost of a smile crossed his face. This is only the beginning. He walked out into the night, Min Seo falling into step behind him. The door closed. Zena stood motionless, the black card still warm in her pocket, the weight of everything he'd revealed pressing down on her shoulders. Outside, rain began to fall again. And somewhere in the darkness, Kwon Tae-sung was about to discover that the woman he'd dismissed as leverage was about to become his greatest mistake. The days following the revelation at Mama Yatun's kitchen moved with a strange, suspended quality, like the calm before a storm that everyone could feel approaching but no one could see. Chief Solomon delivered the folder to the Financial Supervisory Service exactly as Du-hwan had instructed. He answered questions. He signed statements. He cooperated with an investigation that would eventually dismantle Kwon Tae-sung's carefully constructed empire of legitimate-seeming businesses. But investigations take time, and Tae-sung was not a patient man. Zena felt the shift in the air 3 days after the meeting. The protective shadows that had followed her became more visible. Not because they wanted to be seen, but because the threat level had escalated. Min Seo called her personally. Mr. Cha wants you to know that Tae-sung has become aware of your uncle's cooperation. He's displeased. Displeased how? A pause. We've intercepted communications suggesting he intends to make an example. We don't know who the target is yet. Zena's blood ran cold. My family? Possibly you. Min Seo's voice remained professionally calm. Mr. Cha is requesting that you relocate temporarily to a secure location. Your family as well. For how long? Until the investigation concludes and Tae-sung's resources are frozen. 2 weeks. Perhaps 3. Zena closed her eyes. 2 weeks ago, she had been a fashion student with family problems. Now she was hiding from a crime syndicate because she'd accidentally become entangled with two powerful men fighting a war she didn't fully understand. Where would we go? Mr. Cha has a property outside the city. Private. Secure. You would have everything you need. And if I refuse? Another pause, longer this time. Then Mr. Cha will respect your decision. But he asked me to tell you something. Minseo's voice softened almost imperceptibly. He said, "Courage is admirable. Stubbornness is dangerous. I have already lost people I couldn't protect. I don't want to add her name to that list." The words settled into Zena's chest with unexpected weight. I have already lost people I couldn't protect. What losses haunted a man like Cha Duhuan? What ghosts walked beside him through his fortress of glass and stone? "I'll come," she said quietly. "But I need to speak with him first. In person. I'll arrange it." The secure property was an hour outside Seoul. A traditional Korean Hanok estate hidden within a valley of ancient pine trees and mist-shrouded mountains. It was beautiful in a way that felt almost impossible. Curved rooflines against gray skies. Wooden walkways connecting pavilions. A central courtyard with a reflecting pool that mirrored the clouds above. But beneath the beauty, security was absolute. Guards in civilian clothing patrolled the perimeter. Surveillance cameras disguised as garden ornaments monitored every approach. The main gates were reinforced steel wrapped in traditional wooden facades. Zena's family arrived first. Chief Solomon subdued and ashamed. Kayamika quiet and watchful. They were given separate quarters in the East Wing, comfortable but clearly designated as guest accommodations. Zena was led to the West Wing, to a private pavilion overlooking a small waterfall. To him, Du Huan stood on the wooden deck, his back to her as she approached. He wore simple clothes, a white linen shirt, dark trousers, and for the first time he looked almost ordinary. Almost. The dragon still curled up his neck. The ink still marked his skin with stories she was only beginning to understand. "You came," he said without turning. "You didn't give me much choice. I gave you every choice." He turned then, and his charcoal gray eyes held hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "You could have refused. You could have hidden somewhere else. You chose to come here." Zena stepped onto the deck, the wooden boards creaking softly beneath her feet. "You asked me to. I asked Minseo to relay a request. Not the same thing. It felt the same. A flicker of something. Amusement, perhaps, or admiration, crossed his features. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. And you're the most confusing man I've ever met." She moved closer, stopping an arm's length away. "One minute you're the feared mafia boss. The next you're pulling out chairs and delivering evidence folders. I don't know which version is real." "Both. That's not an answer. It's the truth." Du Huan's voice dropped. "I am everything they say I am. I have done things that would horrify you. Built an empire on fear and loyalty and the understanding that some rules exist only for people without power." He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "But I am also the man who sat across from you 3 weeks ago and saw something I hadn't seen in years." His eyes searched her face. Someone who refused to be diminished. Someone who chose dignity over desperation. Someone who looked at a monster and didn't flinch. Zena's heart pounded. "I don't think you're a monster." "Then you're not paying attention." "I'm paying very close attention." She held his gaze. "Monsters don't protect strangers. They don't expose fraud to help families who tried to use their own daughters as bargaining chips. They don't stand on decks overlooking waterfalls looking like they're carrying the weight of the entire world." Du Huan went still. "What do you see, then, if not a monster?" Zena considered the question carefully. "I see a man who built walls so high, he forgot there was anything worth protecting inside them." Her voice softened. "I see someone who's been alone for so long, he doesn't know how to be anything else. I see." She paused. "I see someone worth knowing." Beneath all of it, the silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and possibilities neither of them had anticipated. Finally, Du Huan exhaled. "You should be afraid of me. Probably. But you're not." "No." Zena shook her head slowly. I'm afraid of a lot of things right now, but you're not one of them. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the carefully maintained facade. Why? Because you've had 100 chances to take advantage of this situation, to demand things, to use my family's desperation against me. She stepped closer. And every single time you've given me choices instead. You've protected me without asking for anything in return. You've treated me like what? Like a person worth respecting. The words hung between them. Du-hwan's hand rose slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. You are worth respecting, he said quietly. More than you know. Zena felt the warmth of his touch like electricity. Du-hwan. Stay. The word was soft, vulnerable, completely unlike the man she'd first met in that private dining suite. Not because I'm ordering you to. Not because it's safer. Stay because... He struggled, searching for words that didn't come easily. Because I want you here. Because for the first time in years, I'm not alone when you're near. Zena's breath caught. She had spent her entire life being overlooked. The reliable one. The responsible one. The one who held everything together while everyone else fell apart. No one had ever simply wanted her. Until now. I'll stay, she whispered. The following week became an unexpected sanctuary. Within the Hanok's ancient walls, the outside world felt distant. Not forgotten, but held at bay. The investigation continued. Taesung's resources were slowly frozen as evidence mounted. But inside the estate, a different kind of story was unfolding. Zena discovered that Du-hwan was not the cold, untouchable figure she had first imagined. He woke before dawn every morning to practice kendo in the courtyard, a discipline he'd learned as a teenager and maintained throughout his ascent to power. She watched from her pavilion window as he moved through the forms, the wooden sword slicing through morning mist with precision and grace. He read voraciously Korean philosophy, Western literature, economic theory. His study was filled with books in 5 languages, their spines cracked from use. He played piano. She discovered this by accident, wandering through the main house late one evening and following the sound of music to a room she hadn't known existed. He sat at a grand piano, his back to the door, his fingers moving across the keys with surprising tenderness. The piece was melancholy, something Russian, she thought, and he played it with the familiarity of long practice. She didn't announce herself. She simply listened. When the final notes faded, he spoke without turning. My mother taught me, before she died. Zena stepped into the room. It's beautiful. It's one of the only beautiful things I have left from that time. He turned on the bench, his charcoal eyes finding hers. She believed music could save the soul, even a damaged one. Was she right? I'm still deciding. Zena moved closer, settling onto the bench beside him. Play something else. He studied her for a moment, this woman who had somehow found her way through every wall he'd ever built, and then turned back to the keys. This time, the piece was lighter, hopeful, something that spoke of possibility rather than loss. She sat beside him as he played, watching his hands move with impossible precision across the ivory and black. Loyal. Honor. The words on his knuckles caught the light with each chord. When the music ended, neither of them moved. My mother would have liked you, Du-hwan said quietly. What was she like? Kind. Patient. She saw the best in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. His jaw tightened. She died believing I would become something good, something noble. And instead I became this. He gestured vaguely at himself, at the estate, at the invisible empire surrounding them. A man who controls through fear, who solves problems with violence. Who protects orphanages and funds scholarships and refuses to harm innocent people. Zena touched his hand gently. I've heard the stories. Minseo talks more than you think. Du-hwan's eyes widened slightly. He told you about that? He told me you built a school in Busan, that you quietly pay for medical care for families who can't afford it, that you've never once ordered harm against anyone who wasn't directly threatening your people. She turned his hand over, tracing the letters across his knuckles. These words aren't just ink, are they? They're promises. He didn't pull away. Promises I've struggled to keep. But you've kept them anyway. She looked up at him. That's what makes you different from men like Tae-sung. Not power, not money. The fact that you choose to be more than your worst impulses. Do-hwan stared at her. How do you do that? Do what? See things in me that I can't see myself. Zena smiled, the soft, genuine smile that had first captured his attention across a dining table weeks ago. Maybe that's what happens when someone finally looks at you properly, instead of just seeing what they expect to see. He reached up, cupping her face in his hands. I don't deserve you. Probably not. Her smile widened. But I'm here anyway. This time, when he leaned toward her, she didn't pull away. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, questioning. A conversation without words. Then it deepened. His hands moved into her hair. Her fingers gripped his shoulders. The piano bench creaked beneath their shifting weight. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing harder than before. Well, Zena whispered. That was long overdue, Do-hwan finished. She laughed. A bright, genuine sound that echoed through the room. I was going to say, unexpected. But yes, that too. But peace, as Zena was learning, was always temporary in Do-hwan's world. The call came 3 days later. Min-seo's face was grim as he entered the main pavilion where Do-hwan and Zena were sharing breakfast. We have a problem. Do-hwan set down his chopsticks. Tae-sung. He's moved faster than we anticipated. The investigation froze most of his assets, but he had reserves we didn't know about. Hidden accounts. Untraceable funds. Min-seo's voice was tight. He's using them to make a final play. What kind of play? He's taken someone. One of yours. Do-hwan went very still. Who? Min-seo glanced at Zena before answering. Kayamika Dappa. 2 hours ago. She left the East Wing for a walk in the gardens. When she didn't return, we searched. Found signs of a struggle near the perimeter wall. Zena's blood turned to ice. My cousin. I'm sorry, Miss Dappa. We're doing everything we can to locate her. But Tae-sung's people are skilled at disappearing. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the wooden floor. This is my fault. She's here because of me. Because I asked them to come. Because I thought. This is not your fault. Do-hwan rose, his voice sharp with command. This is Tae-sung's doing. His choice. His crime. But she's my family. And she will be returned safely. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. I will not let him hurt her. Do you understand? I will burn everything he has to the ground before I let that happen. The ferocity in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it steadied her. What do? We wait. He released her shoulders. He'll make contact. Men like Tae-sung don't take hostages unless they want something. As if on cue, Min-seo's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then held it out to Do-hwan. He wants to talk to you. Do-hwan took the phone. Tae-sung. The voice on the other end was smooth, cultured, dripping with false pleasantry. Do-hwan. It's been too long since we spoke directly. How's the weather at that pretty little hammock of yours? Get to the point. Direct as always. Very well. A pause. I have something you want. You have something I want. A trade seems reasonable. What do you want? The Nigerian woman. Zena Dappa. Tae-sung's voice hardened. Deliver her to me within 24 hours, and I'll release her cousin unharmed. Refuse, and I'll send the girl back to you in pieces. Zena heard every word. She didn't flinch. She's not a bargaining chip, Do-hwan said flatly. She became one the moment you started protecting her. The moment you let her into your home, your life, your... Tae-sung laughed softly. Well, we both know where this is heading, don't we? The great silent tiger, brought low by a Nigerian girl with pretty eyes. You're making a mistake. Am I? You're the one hiding in the mountains while the world burns around you. You're the one watching your empire crumble because you chose sentiment over strategy. Taesung's voice dropped to a cruel whisper. 24 hours, Du-hwan. After that, I start sending fingers. The line went dead. Du-hwan lowered the phone slowly. Xena spoke before he could. You're not trading me. Of course not. Then what are we going to do? He turned to Minseo. Gather everyone. Every resource. Every contact. I want Taesung's location within 6 hours. His voice was ice. And prepare for a direct assault. Minseo nodded and disappeared. Xena grabbed Du-hwan's arm. Let me help. Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe. My cousin is out there because of my family's mistakes. I'm not sitting in a pavilion waiting while you risk everything to fix our problems. Xena. No. Her eyes blazed. I am not helpless. I am not fragile. I may not know how to fight, but I know my cousin. I know how she thinks, how she reacts under pressure. I can help. Du-hwan stared at her. This woman who continuously defied every expectation, who refused to stay in the boxes other people built for her. You could die. So could you. She stepped closer. But at least we die fighting together. Instead of me surviving and spending the rest of my life wondering if I could have made a difference. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Du-hwan exhaled. You stay behind me. You follow every instruction. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Xena nodded. Deal. The location came faster than expected. 4 hours instead of 6. Taesung had grown arrogant, complacent. He'd chosen a warehouse complex in an industrial district east of Seoul, assuming that Du-hwan would still be debating strategy while the clock ran down. He was wrong. Du-hwan's convoy arrived at midnight, black vehicles moving through rain-slicked streets like shadows. Xena sat in the back of the lead car, dressed in dark clothes Minseo had provided. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. Beside her, Du-hwan was a different person. Gone was the man who played piano and spoke of his mother's dreams. In his place was the silent tiger, cold, calculating, ready for violence. His black leather gloves gleamed in the dim light. His jaw was set in a hard line. Remember what I said, he murmured. Stay behind me. I remember. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for just a moment, the ice in his eyes softened. Whatever happens in there, know that meeting you was the best thing that's happened to me in years. Xena's throat tightened. Save the declarations for after we survive this. The ghost of a smile crossed his face. Stubborn until the end. Always. The vehicles stopped. The doors opened. The assault began. Du-hwan's men moved with terrifying efficiency, breaching doors, neutralizing guards, clearing rooms with military precision. Xena stayed close to Du-hwan, just as she'd promised, her eyes scanning every shadow for threats. The warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and rusted machinery. The air smelled of oil and something sharper beneath. Fear, perhaps, or the metallic tang of violence waiting to happen. They found Kayamika on the second level. She was tied to a chair in a small office overlooking the main floor, her face bruised but her eyes defiant. When she saw Xena, she let out a choked sob of relief. Xena, I knew you'd come. I knew. Shoo, we're getting you out. Xena rushed to her cousin's side, working at the ropes binding her wrists. Are you hurt? Just bruises. They wanted me alive as leverage. Du-hwan's men secured the perimeter while Xena freed her cousin. But something felt wrong. The assault had been too easy, the resistance too light. Du-hwan felt it too. She could see it in the tension across his shoulders, the way his eyes never stopped moving. It's a trap, he said quietly. We need to move. Now. But before they could reach the door, it slammed shut, and Kwon Taesung's voice echoed through hidden speakers. Did you really think I'd make it that simple? The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, red and dim, casting everything in crimson shadows. I've been watching you since you arrived, Du-hwan. Your men, your movements, your attachments. Taesung's voice was everywhere and nowhere. You've grown soft, predictable, The old you would never have walked into such an obvious setup for a stranger's cousin. Du-hwan pulled Xena and Kayamika behind a stack of crates, his body shielding theirs. Show yourself, Tae-sung. Or are you too much of a coward to face me directly? Laughter echoed through the warehouse. Face you? Why would I do that when I can simply— A pause. Burn everything. The smell hit them first, gasoline, spreading across the concrete floor in a dark, creeping wave. Then the flames. Fire erupted along the perimeter, racing up walls and consuming crates with hungry speed. Smoke billowed toward the ceiling. The heat became oppressive within seconds. Your men are trapped outside. The exits are sealed. And in approximately 4 minutes, this entire building collapses. Tae-sung's voice carried almost theatrical delight. Goodbye, Silent Tiger. I'll send flowers to whatever's left of you. The speakers went dead. Kayamika screamed, but Du-hwan was already moving. This way. There's a loading dock on the north side. The walls are older there. Weaker. He grabbed Xena's hand. Stay with me. They ran. The warehouse had become an inferno. Flames licked at their heels. Smoke stung their eyes and filled their lungs. The heat was unbearable, pressing against exposed skin like physical force. Kayamika stumbled. Xena caught her, pulling her cousin's arm over her shoulders. Keep moving. Don't stop. They reached the north wall, a section of corrugated metal that groaned under the stress of surrounding flames. Du-hwan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground and swung it against the weakened metal with devastating force. Once, twice, 3 times. The wall buckled, then collapsed outward, revealing the rain-soaked night beyond. Go! Du-hwan shoved them through the gap. Don't look back. Xena grabbed his arm. You're coming too. I'll be right behind you. Go! She met his eyes, saw the fear he was hiding beneath the command, and made a decision. She kissed him, fast and fierce, tasting smoke and desperation. Then she pulled Kayamika through the gap and into the rain. Behind them, the warehouse groaned. A death rattle of metal and fire. Xena turned, searching the gap for Du-hwan's silhouette. Nothing. Do-hwan. The roof collapsed. A mountain of flame and debris crashed down where they had been standing moments before. Kayamika screamed. Xena stood frozen, rain streaming down her face, watching the inferno consume everything. No, 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 no. A figure emerged from the smoke, stumbling, coughing, covered in ash and blood from a gash across his forehead. But alive. Cha Du-hwan staggered toward them, his charcoal eyes finding Xena through the chaos. She ran to him, caught him as he nearly fell, held him as the sirens began to wail in the distance. You idiot! She breathed against his chest. You absolute idiot. You promised you'd be right behind me. I was. His voice was raw, just slightly delayed. She laughed. A broken, relieved sound, and held him tighter. Around them, Du-hwan's men began to emerge from the shadows, having breached the sealed exits from outside. Min-seo appeared at his boss's side, face tight with concern. Sir, are you fine? Du-hwan straightened, wincing. Tae-sung, gone. But we tracked his exit route. He won't get far. Good. Du-hwan's voice hardened despite his injuries. Find him. Bring him to me. Alive. Min-seo nodded and disappeared. Kayamika approached Xena hesitantly, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have listened when you said to stay inside. I needed air and I thought. Hey! Xena pulled her cousin into a hug. You're alive. That's all that matters. But you could have died. He could have died. But we didn't. Xena looked back at Du-hwan, who was being examined by a medic despite his protests. We didn't. Kwon Tae-sung was captured 2 days later. He had fled toward Busan, attempting to reach a private boat that would carry him to international waters. Min-seo's people intercepted him at the dock. Alone, abandoned by the guards who had realized their employer's empire was finished. The Financial Supervisory Service completed their investigation the same week. Taesung's legitimate businesses were seized. His criminal operations were exposed. Partners and associates scrambled to distance themselves from the fallout. Chief Solomon Dapa's testimony became central to the case. His cooperation earned him no rewards, but it earned him something more valuable: redemption. He stood before his niece in the garden of the Hannock estate, his head bowed, his hands clasped before him. I have spent my entire life chasing money, status, respect from people who didn't deserve my admiration. His voice cracked, and in doing so, I nearly destroyed the only thing that actually mattered. Zena listened silently. You were never a bargaining chip. You were never a solution to my problems. Chief Solomon looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. You were the daughter I never had, the family I should have protected. And I failed you in the worst possible way. Yes, Zena said quietly. You did. He flinched but didn't look away. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I haven't earned it, but I am asking for a chance. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded document. This is everything I own. Every asset. Every account. I'm signing it over to you and Kayamika. Starting over with nothing. Zena stared at the paper without taking it. Why? Because words are easy. Actions are what matter. He smiled sadly, a pale echo of her own words. You taught me that. She took the document, studied it for a long moment, then handed it back. Keep it. Use it to rebuild properly this time. No shortcuts. No schemes. No sacrificing people for convenience. She met his eyes. That's how you prove you've changed. Not by giving everything away, by actually becoming someone worth trusting. Chief Solomon's face crumbled with emotion. Thank you. Thank you, Zena. She stepped forward and embraced him. Stiffly at first, then with genuine warmth. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to be watching. Very closely. He laughed through his tears. I would expect nothing less. The months that followed became a period of transformation. Zena completed her degree with honors. Her final portfolio, a collection of designs blending Nigerian textile traditions with Korean minimalist aesthetics, attracted attention from established fashion houses across Seoul. But she didn't accept their offers. Instead, she began building her own label. Do-hwan provided resources without taking control. He connected her with suppliers, introduced her to industry contacts, ensured she had space to create without financial pressure. But every design was hers. Every decision was hers. Every success was earned. Their relationship deepened in the quiet spaces between chaos. Late nights in his study, mornings in her studio, conversations that ranged from philosophy to fashion to the dreams they'd never spoken aloud to anyone else. He learned to laugh more. She learned to trust more. They learned each other. Kayamika became Zena's first employee, office manager and emotional support and occasional voice of reason when artistic perfectionism threatened to derail deadlines. Mama Yatund became an unofficial advisor, stopping by the studio with food and wisdom in equal measure. You're building something beautiful, she said one evening, watching Zena pin fabric to a mannequin. Something that will last long after you're gone. That's the goal. And the man? The one with the serious eyes and the tattoos. Zena smiled softly. He's part of the goal too. Good. Mama Yatund nodded with satisfaction. It's about time someone tamed the tiger. I didn't tame him. I just helped him remember who he was before the world made him hard. Same thing, my daughter. Same thing. 1 year after their first meeting, Do-hwan appeared at Zena's studio unannounced. She was alone. Kayamika had left early, and the evening light was fading to purple through the wide windows. He stood in the doorway, dressed simply in black, his hands tucked into his pockets. Am I interrupting? You're always interrupting. She set down her sketchpad. But I've learned to work around it. He crossed the room slowly, his eyes taking in the designs pinned to the walls, the fabric samples draped across tables, the evidence of a dream becoming reality. 1 year ago, he said quietly, I sat across from a woman I didn't know and made a decision I couldn't explain. To pull out my chair? To pay attention. He stopped before her. Everyone else saw a problem to be solved. I saw something else. What? Hope. His voice dropped. The possibility that I didn't have to be alone forever. That someone might see past the reputation, the power, the walls I'd built, and find something worth staying for. Zena's heart pounded. Du Huan. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. I've never done this before. I've never wanted to. But you. He opened the box. Inside, a ring gleamed. A rose gold band with a single diamond, elegant and understated. You made me remember what it feels like to be human, to be worthy of something more than fear and control. His charcoal eyes glistened. I don't have the right words for this. I've never been good with words when they matter. But I know that when I imagine my future, you're in every version. And when I imagine losing you, I can't breathe. He lowered himself to one knee. Zena Dappa. Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Tears spilled down her cheeks. That is absolutely the worst proposal speech I've ever heard. He laughed. Actually laughed. Bright and genuine. Is that a no? It's a yes, you impossible man. She pulled him to his feet. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. Then he kissed her, soft and deep and full of promise. Outside, Seoul glittered against the night sky. Inside, two people who had found each other against impossible odds held on tight. The wedding took place on a spring evening at the Hanok estate. Korean elegance blended seamlessly with Nigerian tradition. Silk hanboks in ivory and gold stood alongside vibrant Asook fabrics in royal blue and coral. Traditional Korean drums played beside Nigerian high-life music. Zena wore a custom gown of her own design, flowing white silk with subtle gold embroidery inspired by both cultures. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo. Baby hairs framed her face, and her grandmother's coral beads hung at her neck. Du Huan wore a tailored black suit with a traditional Korean vest, the dragon at his neck visible above his collar, his knuckles bearing their eternal promises. Loyal. Honor. Chief Solomon walked Zena down the aisle, his steps steady, his eyes bright with tears and pride. I don't deserve this honor, he whispered. No, she agreed softly. But you've earned it. Finally. He kissed her forehead and placed her hand in Du Huan's. Take care of her, or I'll find ways to make your life very difficult. Du Huan's lips twitched. I don't doubt it, sir. The ceremony blended traditions, Korean bows, Nigerian blessings, vows spoken in 3 languages. When it came time for personal words, Du Huan turned to face the gathered crowd. His people, her people, their people now. The day we met, everyone thought they were bringing me a solution to a debt. His voice carried across the courtyard. They were wrong. He turned to Zena, taking both her hands in his. They introduced me to the greatest blessing of my life. The woman who saw through every wall I'd built. Who refused to be anything less than herself. Who taught me that strength isn't about power. It's about choosing love when fear would be easier. Zena's tears fell freely now. I don't know what I did to deserve you, Du Huan continued. But I promise to spend every day of our lives trying to be worthy. To protect you without controlling you. To support your dreams without overshadowing them. To love you without conditions. He lifted her hands to his lips. You are my peace, my hope, my home. Zena took a shaky breath. When I walked into that dining room a year ago, I was terrified. Not of you, of what my family had done. Of being seen as a transaction instead of a person. She squeezed his hands. And then you pulled out a chair. And you gave me something no one else ever had. A choice. She smiled through her tears. Every day since then, you've continued giving me choices. You've never demanded, never controlled, never expected me to be anything other than exactly who I am. She reached up, touching his face. I didn't fall in love with the fearsome mafia boss. I fell in love with the man who plays piano at midnight, who funds orphanages in secret, who looks at me like I'm the most important person in any room. Her voice strengthened. I choose you, not because I have to, not because I need protection, I choose you because you saw me when everyone else looked through me. And I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how seen you are too. The officiant declared them married. They kissed. The crowd erupted. Nigerian highlife music blared. Korean drums thundered. Guests from both worlds danced together beneath strings of lights that turned the evening into magic. Mama Yatund claimed the first dance after the couple, pulling Duhwan into a surprisingly energetic Azonto. Minseo was seen smiling for the first time in 15 years. Chief Solomon danced with Kayamika, both of them laughing at steps they couldn't quite master from the other's culture. And at the center of it all, Zena and Duhwan held each other. Two people from different worlds who had found home in each other's arms. Worth it? She whispered against his chest. Every moment. He kissed the top of her head. Every single moment. Years later, people would ask about their story. How did a Nigerian fashion student end up married to one of Korea's most powerful men? The official answer involved business connections, cultural exchange, a romantic meeting at an exclusive event. The real answer was simpler and far more profound. A family made a desperate mistake. A woman refused to be diminished by it. A man chose respect over exploitation. And love, patient, unexpected, hard-won love, did what love always does when given the chance. It healed wounds that power couldn't touch. It built bridges that money couldn't buy. It proved that the greatest strength isn't in controlling others, but in choosing to stand beside someone who makes you want to be better. The feared mafia boss learned to laugh. The overlooked woman learned to shine. And together they built something more valuable than any empire. Family, a future, a love story worth telling. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far across the world these stories reach. Until next time, remember, your dignity is never the price of someone else's mistakes. And love, real love, always gives you a choice.